Hi everybody, it's Friday night, time to finish chapter 16, and then that will be it for the weekend. I'm going to take the weekend off, and then Monday I will have another chapter for you, and we are getting close. We are on page 145, and there are 186 pages. So you do the math, figure out how many pages are left. So here we go. It was wind like the sound of a train, with the low belly roar of a train. It was a tornado. That was it. The roar of a train meant the bad wind, and it was coming for him. God, he thought, on top of the moose, not this. But it was too late to do anything. In the strange stillness, he looked up to the night sky, then turned back into his shelter, and was leaning over to go through the door opening when it hit. Later he would think of it and find that it was just the same as the moose, just insanity. He was taken in the back by some mad force and driven into the shelter on his face, slammed down into the pine branches of his bed. At the same time, the wind tore at the fire and sprayed red coals and sparks in a cloud around him. Then it backed out, seemed to hesitate momentarily, and returned with a massive roar, a roar that took his ears and his mind and body. He was whipped against the front wall of the shelter like a rag, felt a ripping pain in his ribs again, then was hammered back down into the sand, and once more, while the wind took the whole wall, his bed, the fire, his tools, all of it, and threw them out into the lake, gone out of sight, gone forever. He felt a burning on his neck and reached up to find red coals there. He brushed those off, found more in his pants, brushed those away, and the wind hit again, heaving gusts, tearing gusts. He heard trees snapping in the forest around the rock, felt his body slipping out, and clawed at the rocks to hold himself down. He couldn't think, just held, and knew that he was praying, but didn't know what the prayer was. Knew that he wanted to be, stay and be. And then the wind moved to the lake. Brian heard the great roaring, sucking sound of the water and opened his eyes to see the lake torn by wind. The water slamming in great waves that went in all ways, fought each other, and then rose in a spout of water going up into the night sky like a wet column of light. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The tornado tore one more time at the shore on the opposite side of the lake. Brian could hear trees being ripped down, and then it was gone. Gone as rapidly as it had come. It left nothing but Brian in the pitch dark. He could find nothing of where his fire had been, not a spark, nothing of his shelter, tools, or bed. Even the body of the fool bird was gone. I am back to nothing, he thought, trying to find things in the dark, back to where I was when I crashed, hurt, in the dark, just the same. As if to emphasize his thoughts, the mosquitoes, with the fire gone and the protective smoke no longer saving him, came back in thick, nostril-clogging swarms. All that was left was the hatchet at his belt, still there. But now it began to rain, and in the downpour he would never find anything dry enough to get a fire going. And at last he pulled his battered body back in under the overhang where his bed had been and wrapped his arms around his ribs. Sleep didn't come. Couldn't come with the insects ripping at him. So he lay the rest of the night, slapping mosquitoes and chewing with his mind on the day. This morning he had been fat, well, almost fat, and happy, sure of everything, with good weapons and food and the sun in his face, and things looking good for the future. And inside of one day, just one day, he had been run over by a moose and a tornado, had lost everything, and was back to square one, just like that. A flip of some giant coin, and he was the loser. But there's a difference now, he thought. There really is a difference. I might be hit, but I'm not done. When the light comes, I'll start to rebuild. I still have the hatchet, and that's all I had in the first place. Come on, he thought, baring his teeth in the darkness. Come on. Is that the best you can do? Is that all you can hit me with? A moose in a tornado? Well, he thought, holding his ribs and smiling, then spitting mosquitoes out of his mouth. Well, that won't get the job done. That was the difference now. He had changed, and he was tough. I'm tough where it counts, tough in the head. In the end, right before dawn, a kind of cold snap came down. Something else new, this cold snap. And the mosquitoes settled back into the damp grass and under the leaves, and he could sleep or doze. And the last thought he had that morning as he closed his eyes were, I hope the tornado hit the moose. When he awakened, the sun was cooking the inside of his mouth and had dried his tongue to leather. He had fallen into a deeper sleep with his mouth open just at dawn, and it tasted as if he'd been sucking on his foot all night. He rolled out and almost bellowed with pain from his ribs. They had tightened in the night and seemed to pull at his chest when he moved. He slowed his movements and stood slowly, without stretching, unduly, and went to the lake for a drink. At the shore he kneeled, carefully, and with great gentleness, and drank and rinsed his mouth. To his right, he saw that the fish pond was still there, although the willow gate was gone and there were no fish. They'll come back, he thought, as soon as I can make a spear or bow and get one or two for bait, they'll come back. He turned to look at his shelter, saw that some of the wood for the wall was scattered around the beach, but was still there. Then saw his bow jammed into a driftwood log, broken, but with the precious string still intact. Not so bad now, not so bad. He looked down the shoreline for other parts of his wall, and that's when he saw it. Out in the lake, in the short part of the L, something curved and yellow was sticking 6 or 8 inches out of the water. It was a bright color, not an earth or natural color, and for a moment he could not place it. Then he knew it for what it was. It's the tail of the plane. He said it aloud, half expecting to hear somebody answer him. There it was, sticking up out of the water. The tornado must have flipped the plane around somehow when it hit the lake, changed the position of the plane, and raised the tail. Well, he thought, well, just look at that. And at that same moment, a cutting thought hit him. He thought of the pilot, still in the plane, and that brought a shiver and massive sadness that seemed to settle on him like a weight, and he thought that he should say or do something for the pilot. Some words he didn't know, any of the right words, the religious words. So he went down to the side of the water, looked at the plane, focused his mind the way he did when he was hunting for the fool birds and wanted to concentrate, focused it on the pilot and thought, have rest forever. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 16. So I will get this posted. I hope you all have a good weekend. Find some way to enjoy yourselves. Don't think about school stuff. We'll get back to that on Monday. Take care. Bye.